There he is. There he is.
Oh, it's already streaming.
Yes. All right, guys.
Have a good time at your meeting.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too.
Talk to you soon. Bye. He's got another meeting that starts at 10. He's going to be up till 3, he said.
Oh boy.
He might just not go to bed. I was feeling sorry for myself and you, but
Yeah, these Pacific time meetings are rough.
yeah. So I guess we need to talk about onboarding pretty soon.
Oh yes.
I've got a presentation that I've done on it, and I'm sure you've probably done something similar.
Yeah, I do have one that we used last year, or that I was working on last year. I forget where we were on it.
Mine is a little bit similar to this presentation. It's got some of the same stuff. I want to try to not do that too much, you know. Might be a couple of places where it's appropriate, but and then after that, we need to talk about next year.
Right.
You went to Dallas, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. I talked
That
to
was pretty good.
Kevin on AAMS, and I told him if you'd like, we could include him in our, group of topics next year, and he was in favor of that. So that would, give us one.
That would be really good.
And yeah, I'm not sure how many we want to do. I definitely don't want to do 12 of them, but maybe we could do, like a half a dozen or something.
Yeah, and maybe think about, if we're doing a one presentation, do we really need to do a repeat a couple nights later? Because if it's live streamed, they have the link anyway. They can just go view it.
That's true. Yeah, I thought about that. And actually, if we get a good recording, we even don't need to do it, for each, region that we're, each of the three.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're not going to see the difference. So that's something we can talk about too. It seems like every time I start up Zoom anymore, there's an update. So I did one tonight, and there's a feature on there if you want, and I'm sometimes I'm an early adopter when I probably shouldn't be. But there's a thing you can click on there, and it will center you in the frame of your picture. Like if you,
Oh,
and it doesn't do it constantly because that would be distracting. But like if you're, you kind of move off to one side or something, it'll in a little bit it'll correct it. Because it did that to me a couple times tonight. It wasn't a big change, but it was weird. I noticed it. But it's an optional thing. Is this your second year as division commander?
no, first year.
Oh,
So
got another
this
one.
next year will be the second.
Oh.
Been a lot of work.
Yeah, I did that several years ago. Not too, that wasn't too long ago. I enjoyed it, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah, especially when, balancing these other positions that I didn't previously have.
Right. When I was originally a flotilla commander, um, I we had our vice flotilla commander left, and it was he finally decided, he's not able to come to meetings, so he should resign. So we had a three-way election for that position, and so I ran for that, and I won that, and then I found out like I don't know, less than 6 months later, our flotilla commander had cancer, so I was doing my job and his job, and then he decided not to run again for his second year until he got over his, he had cancer. And so I ran for that and I won. So it wasn't, I mean, it was, I had a lot of support. We had a fairly decent sized flotilla. So that helped a lot. It's always hard to get people to do stuff.
Right.
Like now I'm even in a smaller flotilla out in Western Mass. But there was a while between me being flotilla commander and division commander, and I kind of I'd get my feet wet again. All right, well, I've got 10 o'clock, so
Yep.
let's get underway and get these people out of here. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Dwayne Rose. I'm a division chief in the H Directorate for Recruiting and Retention. One of the ways we can help meet our objectives to get new members and retain current ones is to offer training that will support the knowledge and practices that our auxiliary HR team needs. And that's why we're here. Today's training is on critical forms, including the 7035 change in membership status. We do have an additional third presentation that will follow later this year on onboarding new members. For the purposes of delivery, we grouped our auxiliary districts into regions that we call Eastern, Central, and Pacific, and we're doing Pacific tonight. We're still in the process of updating our names. As you know, the district names changed for the Coast Guard, and we've changed our names in the auxiliary to kind of match with that. So I just want to mention, we are using YouTube again. It enables us to accommodate rather, sessions that have too many participants for Zoom to report. Rio and I are on Zoom, and we're telecasting that to YouTube. So the net effect is we can train more people in less time, but we do regret that we don't have the interaction that we normally would have between a presenter and participants in a Zoom. However, we do encourage you to submit any questions you might have, as well as comments and suggestions you may have. We'll provide our contact information at the end of the presentation, or you can look us up in the aux directory, officer directory, or even an aux data, but the directory is probably a lot easier. This presentation is being recorded, and I want to tell everybody that the same link that you're using to access it tonight, you can access it anytime later. And I believe you can even, if you want to check on something, you can fast forward, I believe, or you can just watch the whole thing again if you want, or if you have somebody else that wants to share the link with them. So let's get underway. Your presenter is Rio Anas. He's a branch chief in the H Directorate in my division, and he's also a division commander, a district staff officer HR, and flotilla staff officer HR, as well as an FSO for marine safety, just in case he gets bored. I shared all these same offices with him. Some of them I have now, and except for the last one. But anyway, let's get started so we can get you this information and we can get you out of here. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I haven't tried trouble finding. There it is. And share. Sorry. There. Okay, are you able to see that?
Yep.
I don't know why that box popped up again.
It's got that little black box again up on top. There it goes. It went away.
There we go. All right. That look good now?
Looks great.
I lost my control. I usually have these issues. Why are you doing this to me? We'll try that. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So, as Dwayne already mentioned, we're doing the session tonight on the critical forms. We're going to do a pretty in-depth review of the 7035 form. That's the one for the disenrollments and transfers and such. And then the 7056, which is the actual transfer form. And then the 7028, which is change of the members, information. Processing critical forms to support the auxiliary and member needs. Does it matter? Well, it absolutely does matter. Because if we do that job right, efficiently and correctly, then we're able to, accomplish what the member needs and keep everything running smoothly. Some of these forms are, timely. They need to be handled, right away, and we can't delay on these things. And we need the member to know how to complete their part, flotilla commander to be comfortable with how a form works, where it needs to go. So if we get all that working right, then everything's running smoothly. So welcome to our presentation, same as the other presentations. And we look at the HR position as one of the most valuable positions of all other bridge staff, since you're the lifeblood of the auxiliary. Without HR, there are no members. You are mission critical. We're there for the members from the beginning. We're working with the prospect. We're getting through the application process. And then, they get their member number, and then we're still working with them to get them through whatever it is they need, uniforms, training. So we're always that go-to person for this new member, because we were the initial contact, and we will continue to be that link to their life in the auxiliary. So we're going to answer any questions or help them along any way we can. And even if it's something that's not in our particular, expertise, that we'll still help out, try to find them, the person to go to. And we always consider ourselves as kind of an unofficial but vital mentor throughout their life in the auxiliary. And we are Team Coast Guard, Semper Paratus. So a presentation note here. So as Dwayne mentioned, we're doing these presentations across the country. We did the Eastern, the Central, now we're doing Pacific. And the content of the training is to promote efficient and correct nationwide standard practices throughout all flotillas for the tasks that we commonly perform. So it's kind of like a standard guideline. And it's also intended to offer the district HR officers basic vetted training materials for new HR officers or even flotilla commanders, or to refresh current ones so that they don't have to create their own training program. Now, one thing that we do know, that there are differences between districts and DIROCs. So in these instances, in the training, you see something that's not quite the way you do it, just make sure that you check with your chain of leadership for direction or questions on that. So what we're going to cover, as I mentioned before, the 7035 change of membership status. So this would be the final notice for outstanding dues, retirement from the auxiliary, transfer to another flotilla, voluntary disenrollment from the auxiliary, and death of a member. And then we'll talk about the 7056 member transfer request and go into detail showing how a form would be filled out, whether it's in district or member transferring to another district. And then we'll cover the 7028 member change of information form. So important forms tip, critical forms. We need to refer to the instructions, both in the forms and provided separately at the end. You cannot backdate a change. You might be able to post date with agreement from the DIROCs. Always complete all relevant information and sign when indicated. Signatures very critical, especially if it's a member request. Mistakes do cost time, and we might not achieve the disenrollment in the desired calendar year if we've got a delay in getting the form completed correctly. Ask questions as often as needed, and always ask for help. Don't guess. So where do you find these forms? Well, they'd be in the forms warehouse. And you can see here, there's a 7028 form, it's a PDF. And then there's the 7035 form. That would be the member change with the disenrollments and such. And then a little farther down, we have the member transfer request form. So always go to Forms Warehouse for the most update current form. You might save something on your desktop. That's not a good place to do it unless you're using it same day or day after. But a month down the line, there could be a change in this form. So you always need to go to the forms warehouse. So a 7035 change of membership. This is what the form looks like. And you'll see right now we're working with current version is 09 of 24. So that's the most current version. It's split in different sections. Section 1 usually for the setup by the flotilla commander to get it started. Section 2 would be the member if they're involved with their request on what they'd like to do. And that could be the retirement or a transfer or voluntary disenrollment. So this is a section they would need to fill out. And then section 3 would be finishing up by the flotilla commander before sending it on to the DSOHR. Page 2 of the form, these are the instructions. And there's different codes here. That's for the voluntary disenrollment, what the member would choose to put in a box, and there's drop downs in there. We'll show that a little later. Again, all the instructions cover all the sections and what you need to do in each of the sections. And on the next couple of slides, we're just kind of enlarging this a little bit so you can have a better view of it. And here's section 3, 4, and 5 also enlarged. Okay, basic on all forms. And again, I'm showing here that we're on the most current form of 0924 for the change of membership. So basic on all forms is the member's name, first name, middle initial, and their ID number. So no matter what the issue is that you're working with, that always has to be there. And I know it seems silly that I mentioned that, but I have seen some come through to me with that blank. It's like, okay, who are we dealing with here? So again, you get the most current form online. Here's the link to get that through Forms Warehouse. If it's a dues issue and there's no contact with the person, the flotilla commander needs to document contact attempts. So you know you're going to be sending out the original dues notice. You might do a follow-up with another email or a phone call. Maybe you left a voice message or a text message. You know, you need to kind of keep track of those contacts. So when it comes to disenrolling somebody, we need to be able to show we made contact attempts. The flotilla commanders to complete the information regarding non-payment of dues, including the year and the amount. And if this is not a relevant issue on this 7035, because you know it involves a transfer or a member who's wanting to retire or something, then you don't fill any of this out in section 1 other than the member's name. You always sign and date the 7035. That starts the clock on 30 days notice to pay. Dues timeline. Does your district actually have a schedule? It really should. This is an example from a district. And so on August 1st, we're actually sending dues billing to all members. And it's an email with all the information on, you know, how you fill out the check and who you mail it to. And then by 9/1, you have a second notice being sent out because we know there are some people that might have missed the first one, so we want to give them a reminder. But now on 10/1, you've not had any contact by this member. They haven't paid their dues. So now we need to send out another dues notice with the 7035 started by the flotilla commander, advising the member that they have 30 days to pay their dues or they will be disenrolled. 11/1, you still have no payment, no response from a member. You don't know what their intentions are, but you've had no contact with them. So now you're finishing up the 7035 and you're sending it off to your DSOHR for disenrollment for non-payment of dues. Hopefully, DSOHR by 11/15 is getting this thing sent off to DIROC so that this process for disenrollment can be done. And DIROC will process the disenrollment by 12/1 if we've got it in their hands to do so. And in my district, we kind of have a guarantee that if we get it in before the first of the year, they will make sure it gets processed. And if they do process it after the first of the year, the flotillas are not penalized for the dues. So failure to get this done on time and into the hands of DIROCS to get this processed might put your flotilla at risk for having to pay dues for a member who's not there. The timeline only works if flotillas stay on the schedule. Starting sooner really isn't a bad idea. In my flotilla, we even kind of, in July, we're mentioning in the flotilla meeting that dues notices will be going out. So the more heads up you can provide, the better. So we talked about the dues calendar, and does your district or flotilla consistently use the timeline? When you follow this timeline, it'll provide a consistent process for all flotillas. Everybody be on the same page with doing this. And it communicates what has to happen and when. So everybody knows there's no guesswork on that. It ensures sufficient contact attempts are made to the member, documents each step in contact, and allows 7035 to be processed before the end of the year and appropriate members disenroll. Obviously, we don't want to disenroll people, so let's try to really engage with them before we get to this point. And ensures the flotilla is not charged for members. Again, that's not a good thing. We do not carry members over. If somebody is not paying their dues, they need to be disenrolled that year. I have seen some disenrollment forms come my way, and they're covering 2 years worth, and that is not something we are allowed to do. So 7035 has member change options. So this is section 2, and the member has, their own options that they can choose. Maybe they want to retire, or maybe they want to transfer to another flotilla. If that's the case, they need to fill out the flotilla commander needs to help them, or get the 7056 form filled out as well. Or the member may just decide they want to disenroll, and they can put down a reason for that. In any case, here we also have the box for the membership card to be enclosed, and then the member has to sign this section. This is their indication that this is what they want to do. If it's a retirement, you want to make sure that the member is qualified. So 15 years of service. And as a flotilla commander or HR who has this form filled out by this member, you want to verify their date of employment. Make sure that, they understand what it is. Maybe they didn't know where it was, how to find it, and they were guessing. So we want to make sure that they have the correct date in there. Maybe they could be short, and we want to make sure that they get the 15 years of service. So maybe you're going to hold on to them for another year just so they get the 15 years. Now, this is something that may work different between your flotillas, between your DIROCSs or districts, but some districts may send out a certificate or PIN or a retirement ID card, or they might do all of them. So just check with your district to see what your protocol is on that. In section 3 here, so when this form goes to the DSOHR, you could put in the district number, the district name, or your DSOHR's name, their actual name. I don't know if there's any hard, fast rule on that, so that's up to however your DSO would like it to be titled. As a flotilla commander, you would then check the appropriate box. Now, if this does happen to be a death of a member, if you have the date of death, that would be nice to put that in there next to the death of a member. And then also name and address of next of kin. I know that my DIROCS will send out a condolence letter, um, with appreciation for their years of service to the auxiliary. And as a DSOHR, I also copy this form. When I send it to DIROCS, I will copy it to Past Commanders Association, because they also will add them to the rolls of members who passed the bar. And then they are recognized at the D-trains. So make sure you kind of make sure that that notification has gone forward and appropriate officers are notified. You want to give a disenrollment date, effective date. Again, you cannot backdate that. And you would indicate for non-payment of dues or at member's request. So you check that appropriate box. Verifying with your DSO whether a division commander signature is needed. It is marked here as optional. And there were some years ago that in my district it was required, but now it's no longer. However, I would suggest as a flotilla commander or HR, whoever is sending this onto your DIROCS, that you copy your division commander on that email and the form, just so they are informed of, okay, I've got somebody leaving my division and I'd kind of like to know why, or the flotilla. Again, you follow this through your chain of leadership, your forms flow. So here's a national non-payment of dues situation. So again, we start out with the member's name. We actually put in the year here for the dues. Again, hopefully we're only dealing with 1 year and not 2 years. The amount that is due, the flotilla commander name here, and then here we have that October 1st date. We're dealing with non-payment of dues situation here. So the October 1st date now gets the clock running. So by November 1st, we better have some dues from this member, or we need to start the disenrollment process. The only thing to put in section 2 here would be your, district, division, flotilla number. Otherwise, nothing else needs to be filled out because none of this is relevant. So now we've got past November 1st, no response from the member. So now your flotilla commander is going to finish up on this and get it off to DSOHR. So they would fill in, obviously the district number or name, whatever is required. Check the box, recommend disenrollment effective 11/15. Personally, I write in something like no response from all communication attempts, see email attached. And that would have the listing of all the communication attempts that were made. And this is something that should be sent along in the email by the flotilla commander. And then you'd be also checking a box for non-payment of financial obligations. The flotilla commander would then sign this, date it, and get it off to DSOHR for processing. Again, you should copy your division commander on this so they know what's going on. If you're sending this form out, as we said, on December 1st, or October 1st, sorry, this gets the clock running, and you're going to want to send this out by actual mail, USPS, and it should be, if you're able to, through certified mail or priority mail. You want to make sure it actually got delivered to the house. So you've now had email attempts, phone attempts by voicemail or text message. Now you've got actual mail attempts. So all bases have been covered. They can't say that they weren't notified. This is an example of the dues letter that flotilla might send out. So it kind of covers, how to get the payments made, who you'd send it to, how to fill out the check. In my district or my flotilla, my division, we not only send out the 7035, but we'll enclose this letter as well. This is a copy of that initial email that was sent out on August 1st. So if all of a sudden we got their attention by the letter in the mail, they now have the means to make that payment. So here's a member requested disenrollment situation. Again, we fill out the name at the top. This is going to be started by the flotilla commander once they've been informed by a member that they want to disenroll. And so they get this to the member, or they can help them fill this out because they might not know, every box to check and what to do. So section 2 here, we want to get in the district, division, flotilla. The date, it could be any date. Although when you run to the end of the year, we're running up against the clock, but we know that this member requested disenrollments can happen any time of the year. So here's where the member, you check the box, they desire to disenroll. And the reason is, and they can write in anything they want here. But below that, there are drop downs on this PDF form. So you can choose up to 3 reasons if you want to. We want to check the box about the ID card that they turned it in. If they did not, was the card lost? Maybe they were never issued a card. This could be a member who's been in AP status for a couple of years. And then the member has to sign this. This is their intent, their request on what they want to have happen. So they have to sign it. Flotilla commander at this point would finish up here in section 3. Recommend disenrollment, effective date. Again, can be any date, except now, we're running up against the clock at the end of the year. So I would choose the November 15th date. Check the box for that member's request. Flotilla commander signs this, dates it, and gets it off to their DSOHR for processing and forwarding on to DIROCS. So we have a member retirement situation here. Again, we have to have the name up here. We have the district number, date, and this can be any time of the year again. A member can change their mind on what they'd like to do. Maybe they decide I'm done. I put in 15 years. I'm ready for retirement. So we need to check the box for I desire to be retired. Date of enrollment. If they weren't able to find it, flotilla commander can assist them in finding that date in Aux data. Again, we check down here for the ID card. Did they turn it in? If not, write in some reason why it was not turned in. The member again has to sign this because this is their intent. Flotilla commander now finishes up with the DSOHR district number or name, signs the form, dates it, and also checks the box for member desires and is eligible for retired member status. Point down here, as a DSOHR, when I'm sending this on to my DIROCS for processing, I put in a note here in section 4, just kind of a reminder what I would like DIROCS to do. Please send retirement certificate and PIN. Just in case, I want to make sure that they know what I'd like to have happen. Regarding the member ID card, you always attempt to get that ID card back. Occasionally it's never been issued or maybe never renewed, got lost or something. If it is retrieved, return it with the 7035 copy to DSOHR, or you can destroy it and write that prominently on the 7035 form. In my district, I'm happy that the flotilla commander just tells me it was turned in and that they will destroy it. I don't really need them mailing that to me in the mail. these 7035 forms can be handled by email. So it's like, why waste postage sending me an ID card that I'm just going to shred myself? If it's not retrieved, indicate that prominently on the 7035 that you tried and did so several times. We have a death of a member situation. Again, Flotilla Commander will start this form out with the member's name at the top and their ID number. So they've probably been notified by, a family member that this member has, passed the bar. And so Flotilla Commander is going to be solely filling this form out. We get the flotilla number in here, the date, which again, that can happen any time of the year. They'll finish up down here with the district DSOHR. And then we'll have check the box for death of a member, date if it's provided. It's just a nice thing to have if you can. Again, we'll want to check the box for a name and address of next of kin, and hopefully you're able to get that. So this member can be added to the rolls for members who pass the bar and be recognized from their years of service. Flotilla Commander will sign this and date it and get it off to their DSOHR. Member request for transfer. So they'll still do this 7035 form. Flotilla Commander can assist here. We need to have the member's name at the top. Section 2 here is, I desire to transfer to. You get the flotilla in that box there. The date, again, this could happen any time of the year, but we're getting the end of the year, so we want to kind of get this processed as quickly as possible. And then also, we need to include a 7056 form, the actual transfer form, with the 7035. Both these forms should be turned in together. And then we need to have the member's signature indicating this is what they want to do. Flotilla Commander can follow this up then, finalizing this. District, HR, their signature date, and then they can send this on to their DSOHR. Couple notes here. Let me back up. Couple notes here regarding the 7035 form. I've been told that the form does not work well with an electronic signature. Using a form in the Adobe PDF, it has a simple signature that you can create and paste onto the form. Works real well. But some people have tried to use an electronic type signature, and I've heard it does not copy through. Once you try to save and send the form on it, signature might not be there anymore. So just keep it simple. There's a little drop-down box on the left in Adobe that gives you categories. You want to check a box, you want to add text, or you want to add a signature. That works real well. Also, speaking of dues, so what happens? You've gone through this process of disenrolling somebody. I mean, you've gotten the process, all that paperwork done. The members never contacted you, even after you mailed the form to them, and now you've sent your paperwork on to your DSOHR, and they've now forwarded it on to DIROCS, and let's say about December 20th, this member resurfaces and says, I want to pay my dues. What do? Well, immediately contact your DSOHR. Well, get the dues, but immediately contact your DSOHR and have them contact DIROCS. At least in my district, it's an easy thing to undo. It's within a couple of days of processing, it can be reversed, and we're back to normal again. Now, if this member has not contacted you and they've been disenrolled, and it gets beyond 30 days, and then they resurface and say, I want to stay with the auxiliary. Well, in my district, when it's beyond 30 days, they have to fill out a new application form. It's not an easy fix in the system to undo it. So they'll just have to reapply. So just keep that in mind. You want to check with your DSOHR in any case, if this situation happens, to see how this can be taken care of. So back to the transfer. So again, you go to Forms Warehouse and you find this 7056 form, and we're working on a current version here of 0323. First thing to do when you open this PDF form, the page is going to look like this. There's going to be this box right in here. And it needs you to indicate whether this is within district or outside district. Once you make that check mark, the form will change to handle either of those situations. I know this box does say that you can fill this form out either electronically or manually, and basically that just means you can fill it out in the online PDF form electronically, or you can actually print out the form and fill it out by hand, which means then you would need to scan it and email it to get signatures on it. And there are instructions for this form. Page 2 here has all the instructions, and they cover a lot of areas through all sections of the form. So basically, within district form, we have 4 sections here, and it's going to be completed by the flotilla commander. Well, it can be. I think most cases, the flotilla commander can initiate this for the member, but it does need the member's signature. What flotilla is the member transferring from and to? Those boxes need to be completed. Current flotilla marks approval and forwards to the receiving flotilla commander, and then you forward to your chain of leadership forms flow. Again, this can be done electronically. At least I'm pretty sure in most districts that is the case. So here's a sample of a within district transfer. So we need to have the member's name up here, their signature, then you have their ID number, the date of this request, and then an effective date. From what flotilla are they transferring, and to what flotilla are they transferring? Again, you should route this with a 7035 to your DSOHR. So you need the current flotilla's commander's name and signature here, and the date and approval, assuming you're approving this. Now, in my district, I have the flotilla commanders send this to me to manage the receiving flotilla commander's signature, so that the current flotilla commander isn't burdened with making sure that the receiving flotilla commander has signed this and moved it on. You know, things can happen. Somebody misses an email and then it's just dead in the water. That's why I prefer that they send it to me, and I will keep track of it and be on top of it and make sure that this is getting the attention that it needs. I think flotilla commanders have enough work to do without having to be, monitoring this constantly. So here's an example of a member transfer request that is outside the district. So you can see this change just a little bit. So we still have the member's name and their signature, member ID number, date, effective date, but now we've got a new line down here. It changes a little bit. You have the from what flotilla and district to what flotilla and district. Well, they kind of changed that out a little bit. But then they also added in here I can be contacted. So this is the member's phone number or email. I put both in here. So if there's any questions during the transfer process, they can be contacted for information. Again, you route this with the 7035 to your DSOHR. Flotilla commander will, put their name, sign, date it, and approval. And again, forward this through your chain of leadership forms flow. You can see where this gets a little bit wonky here. So this is why my recommendation is get it in the hands of the DSOHR, who can be on top of this, making sure that this is getting the attention that it needs and the signatures. So it goes from the current flotilla commander to the receiving flotilla commander. Now this is in another district. Then it's supposed to go back to the current director of auxiliary. Well, I'm pretty sure that the receiving flotilla commander doesn't know how to contact the current director of auxiliary in, say 9th Central. They don't have that contact listing of these director of auxiliaries. So that's why the DSOHR, who has this information, can handle this more efficiently, I think. So here we have the 7028 member profile change. This form looks like the 0624 form. And again, get this out of the Forms Warehouse. Now, this really can be handled by the member through Aux Data 2. They can change any information in their profile that they want. But maybe the member doesn't know how to use Aux Data 2. So they can use this form instead. But I would suggest that even if they know how to use Aux Data 2, they should still submit this form to their Flotilla IS officer, who could then go into their profile and make sure that what they intended to change really did get changed correctly in there, so that there's no errors. This 7028 form, there's pretty simple instructions here on page 2. The next 3 pages are just a lot of skill bank codes, which I don't know if a lot of those will get changed, but that's what's there. So what we covered was, the critical forms, 7035 change of membership status, final notice for outstanding dues, retirement from the auxiliary, transfer to another flotilla, voluntary disenrollment, and death of a member. And then the 7056, we got through how to do a form in the same district, which is certainly a whole lot easier. And then for going to a different district, that's different. It's a little bit more work. And then the 7025 member, change of information form. That's pretty easy there. Okay. Dwayne, I think this is where you come in. I'd like to make a note here that make sure that you credit your training time. I mean, you're attending a training session tonight. So if you fill out a 7029, use the code 99B. And if you know how to do it through Aux Data 2, you can add it in there as well. So, Dwayne, ready?
Yeah, thanks. I don't think Rio missed anything, but as I was listening, I had a few thoughts, based on, I've been doing auxiliary HR for, gosh, almost 15 years now. One thing I found is that, maybe 95% of the way, the forms are handled is the same for different districts, but there's enough that's different that's really important to know it. Hopefully, if you're a new HR officer, you've got someone to kind of show you the ropes and take you through that. Like just as Rio has done the presentation, I noticed some differences, in my district. Like he talked about if somebody comes back and pays the dues after they've already been, closed out. In my district, you can do it up to 90 days. And the critical thing is, if you do it within that 90 days, you're not going to lose your quals. But if you go beyond that, like Rio said, you have to do a new application and you have to redo your qual. So you, like if you were a vessel examiner, you got to take that test again. If you're in crew, you got to do that over, so it's a big deal to go too long. If it was a misunderstanding or you thought you were going to do something, join the Civil Air Patrol or something else, but you found out you weren't, change that right away, because the longer it goes, the harder it's going to be to get back on board. I would point out with dues, it's really important to make sure you stay on schedule. And you could, and like Rio said, it doesn't hurt to start earlier than the timeline. Like you can start in, June or July if you want, because once things get hot and heavy, it's kind of hard sometimes to stay on schedule. And by the time you get you're non-renewing somebody, chances are that dues have already been paid. You get a joint billing for all dues that are due. And so that's already been paid. So you want to get that person off the books by the end of the calendar year, or your flotilla could get stuck with paying, one or more dues for members. An important thing I learned is stay in your lane. Don't make any commitments about dues and credits. It's not HR's call. So refer the member and officers to the FN officers, because they're the ones that make the call. You can say, if the person is off the books by the end of the year, chances are that you'll get a credit for the dues, but that's not under HR's control. And then Rio mentioned about that one form having a drop-down menu. I think it was a transfer form, but sometimes these are done manually. So if you're doing it electronically, you will have that form, that drop-down available. If not, you just have to do it manually. One thing you want to do is make sure you build a good relationship with your DIROCs and their work schedule. Because remember that at the end of the year, they're not only dealing with you, they're dealing with the whole district. And people want exceptions or everything comes in at once, they can be overwhelmed. And they were going to make a change I'm in the District 1 Northern, the old name. They were going to change it so all the 7035s had to be the last day DIROCs could process them would be the 10th of December. Well, that's really difficult because we had never operated that way before. So I talked to the district commodore about that, and he agreed that that's something that the DSO for finance wanted, and it would be helpful to them, but we realized it would not be helpful to us. They also wanted us to not process any new member applications in the fourth quarter, which would have been a disaster for us when we're trying to get new members on the books. And closely follow your district's timelines. Chances are they're not going to go clear to the end of December, but they'll probably go pretty close to it. But it's really important you find out, because once that ends, it's over. So that person is not going to be just rolled until the next calendar year, and your float to end up owing the dues. Rio said the retirement awards vary by district, so know what yours are. When we have people join the auxiliary, we have what we call a value proposition. We tell them what's the benefit going to be to you when you join. Well, you're going to have satisfaction, you're going to have fellowship, you're going to learn new skills, things like that. We're trying to improve that value proposition, especially now when it's hard to get people to volunteer. At the same time, we're losing members. So one thing I've been lobbying for a while, and I've gotten good response to it, but it hasn't happened yet, is when you think about people that were in the military, and many of our members had, but not all of them. I didn't serve in the military. If they do the normal term, either 2 years or 4 years, whatever it is, they can have access to the CGX store for Coast Guard, or just the PX for the other military after they retire, which is a really nice benefit. No sales tax, and they have good prices. And my position is, well, if somebody's been in the auxiliary and they've been in for 15 years, That's a great service to the country. And they also, they put in a lot of hours of work, and let's face it, a lot of us auxiliaries pay a lot of money for the things we need. We don't always turn in for, paper or toner, things like that for our printers. So I think that's deserved, but it's, right now it's still a hope to do. I would also mention for death of a member, it varies by district. Like in my district, we have one person, a former Commodore, that we notify. And if there's enough time, well, she will always contact the next of kin to find out details. And every person that's been a member gets a notice that's sent out to all members in our district. It's a nice, kind of a nice thing because a lot of people want to know. But also if there's time, she will offer them to have an auxiliary service at the funeral where we come out in uniform and we there's a little a nice thing that we read, and it's very kind of official, and it's a nice thing. If there's not time for that or they don't want that, they try to find out what if there's time to attend the service. That'll also be communicated to all the members. If it's not, there'll still be a notification, and it'll just whatever information is available, like an obituary, will be included. So it's just a kind of nice thing. Rio said, the transfers within a district are simpler. Part of what makes it simpler is if you go out of the district, it's a little more complex to get the approvals. And then, if you're staying in the same district, well, there's a file on every member in the district, but it's in the district. So if the person is transferring out of the district, then that file has to physically leave that district and go to the new district. So that's another step that has to be coordinated. Final thought, no matter how long you've been in the auxiliary, you're always going to have questions. Could be changes or just something you've never done before. So never be afraid to ask questions. Usually your fellow members will be very helpful, and in turn you can help someone else. So that's all I had. Just I thought Rio did a great job, but just a couple of things, partly differences between if there's that many changes or differences between my district and his district, there's going to be changes with other districts. So just find out what, if you're new, find out what the specifics are so you'll be aware of them. And it's better if you know ahead of time, forewarned is forearmed, and you'll make less mistakes. And I can't emphasize enough to always refer to the instructions. Even flotilla commanders don't always do that. The forms are fairly simple, but if you don't follow the instructions, it's pretty easy to mess it up. And when you're doing 7035s, you don't have a lot of time to waste. So if the Dirox doesn't have time to mess with yours, they're going to reject it to you. And by the time you fix what the problem was and get it back, you may not have time to get it off the books. So just what they say, do it right the first time. But that's reminder that this link that got you into this meeting tonight is still active after the session, and you can use that link to go back in if there's something. If you want to watch the whole thing again, that's fine. If you want to, I'm pretty sure you can fast forward to different parts to check on it. So that's available. You can also share it. So, again, thanks for coming. We will be having, a new session on onboarding, and that will be done with all districts by the end of the year. And then we're also planning on having some new sessions next year. So if you have any questions, let me know or let Rio know. And if you have any suggestions for presentations you would like to see, please let us know about that. And also, we appreciate getting your feedback on what you thought of the session, because we're getting pretty good reviews on them, but there's always room for improvement. So, once again, thanks for coming, and have a good evening, and we'll see you on the flip side. Good night, everyone.
All right.